Same day with Kalyana Design, and today we will do project number 2 of the 5th part of the mokume gane. I will do a Skinner blend with yellow, red, and black because the specific mokume gane that I did looks a little bit different depending on the background. So it looks a little bit like the flag of Germany, doesn't it? But I need to pull it together a bit because it's too stretched out. So as I showed you before in my Skinner blend tutorial, you just roll it up and then start pushing it towards the inside, and that way you can make your strip of Skinner blend more narrow whenever it gets too wide. So I'm figuring out how wide, if it's wide enough, because it's going to widen a little bit more when going through the pasta machine. And then I put it through the pasta machine. I will have to double it so that the black will be in the middle, then on both sides the red, and towards the end of the necklace I will have the yellow. And it looks pretty good, but it needs to be a little bit more stretched out. So I did manipulate a little bit the sheet, and I will be able to put the two halves of the necklace on the sheet of the Skinner blend. I am going a little bit over the middle so I can cut to shape the black middle and then put together the two sides. But yeah, that reminds me of Europe. Sometimes I do miss Europe a lot. So yes, I did that template by myself. It's not hard to draw a bib necklace template, and as soon as I catch up with other stuff, I promise you I will put some downloadable templates on my website. Downloadable, printable. Yay. So once I did cut out my template, I am going to, that was my background, I'm going to arrange the slices that I have from the mokume gane, and of course flatten them a bit to make sure that they are all approximately the same width, after which the same thickness, after which of course comes a lot of evening with the roller, and roll up and roll down and roll up and roll down. Don't forget to release the clay from time to time from the wax paper so it would have room to expand, because otherwise it gets stuck to the wax paper and kind of can ripple. After which you put your background, and you don't have to do a Skinner blend. I mean, you can put it on whatever other color you want. I just wanted to have a little bit of and you'll see the difference is very slight, but I wanted to have a little bit of a difference between the middle of the bib necklace and the endings. So I'm going to flatten that and bring it to the same thickness as the rest. And see, the good part with the wax paper, whenever you use, because you noticed I put the wax paper on top too, and I do that for two reasons. Number one is that my roller will not stick to the clay, so the clay will not lift to follow the roller. And number two, because the clay, when it gets to a certain thickness, it will stick to the wax paper. So whenever you see areas that where the clay is not stuck to the wax paper, that means that it's not even yet. Now you see me manipulating a little bit the sheet of the mokume gane slices. So I would make it curve. I would curve it a bit so it would fit the background clay. And then I am placing it with a lot of care and attention on the background shape. And yes, did you notice that whenever you have translucent mixed with any kind of red, it looks like slices of prosciutto? Aren't you hungry now? So now I'm going to just cut little pieces and wherever it's not fitting, add them there. After which I will be, you guessed it, leveling it up again. But yeah, see what I was saying? You can see where the clay is sticking to the wax paper and where it's not. Now remove the top wax paper and check it again. There will be little spots where there is clay missing because we had slices and put them together, and whenever you work with translucent you might miss a spot or two. So again, get little crumbles from the edges that are already over the normal edge that you'll need, and just cover up those spots, put the wax paper back and start again evening out. Then once you know that everything is nice and even, turn it upside down, remove the back wax paper, and first do a rough trim of all those slices that are getting overboard, and just remove them. And as a side note, don't throw them away. They make beautiful cabochons that you can place on various pieces here and there. They don't really look like carnelian. I mean, in color, yeah, they do look like carnelian, but they have that gold leaf inside, and carnelian doesn't have sparklies. It still looks beautiful. Doesn't have to necessarily look like a gemstone to be beautiful, a cabochon. I mean, hey, we are creating here. We can create gemstones. So then arrange the, because you'll see, because of the stretching, of course, the shape does not fit the template, so just arrange it until it fits the template. After which you cut your template, always on the back, and you will see in a moment why. Never cut it on the front. I mean, besides the fact that you might miss the actual edge of the background clay, there is another reason. Make sure that you trim nicely the whole shape. You will do more trimming after you place it on the baking media, but it helps if it is already nicely trimmed. Then once you got that, I normally bake my bib necklaces on this glass bowl that is very common, and then to place it on there, don't remove it from the wax paper. Place it first on the bowl and then remove the wax paper from the clay, because that way there will be very little stretching. Even if you remove it and replace it on the bowl afterwards, there will be very little stretching, not as much as when you try to remove it from the wax paper, because it would be already stuck to the bowl, so it won't stretch when it separates from the wax paper. After which you arrange it on your bowl. And now remember, when you place the ends higher, you make a smaller necklace. When you place them lower, you will make a larger necklace, of course depending on the girth of the neck of the person you're making the necklace for. Then take whatever you're using as a small roller. You know, I always use my faithful blue paintbrush, and smooth the edges. After which you can take your roller, and wherever you see any kind of non-evenness, fix that. And then, as I said, comes a second trimming to make sure that all your edges are beautiful and straight, and there is no half a millimeter bowing of any kind. And then once you do that, you are ready for baking. And of course, bake it per manufacturer's instructions. And I would suggest that you bake it for about 15 minutes more than it says on the package, even if it is a thinner sheet of clay. Now that it is baked, I want to place a focal piece on it, and you see there is a slight difference in hue from the middle to the ends. I have this stamp, texture stamp that I made myself in polymer clay, and I will be using, I use this mix whenever I want to imitate patinaed German silver. And that mix is pretty much half and half gold and black with a smidgen of antique gold. So I did my imprint, and then I will use this faux carnelian cabochon that I will place there. And you see I'm placing it kind of asymmetrical. This is how my stamp is, and I made it special for pendants. And then of course I will be putting some liquid clay on the base for the cabochon, and I will place it on the bib necklace, and then I will put more liquid clay on the faux carnelian cabochon to place it on the base for the pendant. And once I did that, of course, check if everything is nice and even. And I will be placing a few rhinestones, and they are the kind that have a fusing back. You know, whenever you see them that they have a grayish, silverish back, that's the kind that will kind of melt and fuse with the clay when the clay gets baked. So you don't have to worry about removing them after the clay is baked to glue them in place. But I thought that some rhinestones would look really pretty on this bib necklace. And then once that is set, I will bake it again. I'm doing just a pre-baking of about 15 minutes so that I can manipulate it safely while I am putting on the backing. I'm using a Makins texture sheet. I love making texture sheets for the backing because they can be passed through the pasta machine and thus get a very even and deep imprint. And I chose this one because it matches a little bit the mokume gane. Obviously I need to put it in two because the texture sheet is not big enough, so I am trying to pretty much cut straight and then blend those two pieces together so they wouldn't be very obvious that I used some patching there. And they'll still be obvious because there's some mica shift, but it won't be that obvious. After which I am trimming the excess. And you know, I always do first a rough trim, after which I do a very fine trim. And once I finish trimming, oh yeah, I forgot to say, of course I put some liquid clay between the back of the necklace and the backing of clay. I am using my paintbrush to smooth out the edge. And if you notice, whenever I pass with my paintbrush over the baked clay, it will automatically pretty much trim the raw clay by itself, and thus I will have very nice and smooth edges. And I do that very, very carefully all around the bib necklace. After which, and after I'm baking everything, that would be the third bake, and this time I'm baking for half an hour, I will be glazing it with Kato liquid. And I'm going to switch cameras here because I have to move away the camera that's on top whenever I'm using the heat gun. I don't want to damage the camera. But I want to show you how I'm applying first with a paintbrush that I have just for this. And you can clean the paintbrush with alcohol. Soak it in alcohol and it will be cleaned perfectly. So put a sheer layer of liquid clay and then let it sit for a few minutes because it has the tendency to level itself out. Just don't put the necklace down because it's going to pull the gravity law. And then use the heat gun. You see how I'm moving it very, very fast. I'm moving it fast even when it's not sped up. and relatively close to the necklace until you see the milky look change into a beautiful glassy gloss. I mean, it looks glass-like once it's heat gun cured. And I placed a little bit more on the cabochon just to make it look better. So you see, it's gorgeous. Then I will do the second half of it, and the same, and there we go, it's ready to get the antiquing on. And I'm using the Gilder's paste in German silver, and I will first use a paintbrush to do the more fine details that are on the so-called metal setting of the cabochon. And you can see with that mix for the background, the moment that you apply the Gilder's paste, it looks exactly like metal. I mean, I had people who could not believe me that it's not metal whenever I do this type of antiquing and faux patina. Then once I do the cabochon setting part, for the back it's way easier because I can just use my finger. So make sure with the paintbrush that you don't put that Gilder's paste all over the place. You need only the raised areas. And as I said, for the back I'm using just my finger, and until I cover the whole area of the back, and then I will be covering fully that smooth edge that I made, because it enhances the metal look. And this is pretty much what we've got. And I have drilled the holes at the ends, and I will be placing these huge jump rings, mega jump rings. Yeah, you can get them at Hobby Lobby, probably at Michael's too. And because I use the German silver patina, I am using the antique gold type of findings. And I have a whole bunch of chains like that, because I have the bad habit of buying all kinds of vintage jewelry at garage sales for a few bucks, and I just break them into pieces. And I will be using approximately 4 inches of chain on each side and double it up. This is a bib necklace that will be fairly close to the neck, almost like a choker, pretty much. So I am not making the chain very long. And of course you can adjust the chain so it would fit you perfectly. And I am using a stout jump ring on one side and a lobster clasp on the other side. And there we go, we have a beautiful bib necklace from our translucent and gold leaf mokume gane. Happy claying!